Okay, I'm going to go over the first 3 lessons in Freecodecamp's Bootstrap section. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get right to work. All right, so let me jump over there. In the map, just real quick so you know where I'm at the very first lesson. If this decides to pull up, use responsive design with Bootstrap's fluid container. So where I'm at is lesson number 1. I'm on this guy, just so if you'd like to know exactly where I'm at. I'm going to read all this and then show you my logic behind doing it. I'm sure there's other ways of explaining it, but we'll just go through this. So we're going to use the Bootstrap's responsive design, the fluid container here. In the HTML and CSS section of Freecodecamp, we built a cat photo app. Now let's go back to it. This time we'll style it using the popular Bootstrap responsive CSS framework. Bootstrap will figure out how wide your screen is and respond by resizing your HTML elements, hence the name responsive design. With responsive design, there's no need to design a mobile version of your website. It will look good on devices with screens of any width. That's obviously a nice feature. You can add Bootstrap to any app just by including it by adding the following code to the top of your HTML. Basically, this is something called a CDN, a content delivery network that's pushing the library over the web, and you can copy paste that into your text editor. It's already included in this one. Like they have here in this case, we've already added it to you or added it for you to this page behind the scenes. That's good, saves us a little time. To get started, we should nest all of our HTML elements in a div element with the class container-fluid. So let's first talk about quickly, where is our HTML and where is our CSS? So just a brief point to touch on this. Between our style element there and our style element there, that's all CSS. And then when we go below the style close element here and we look at our div, well, actually, I just realized that I finished the lesson, but we'll take this out here because I'll go back over it. So but below this style close tag, we see our H2 element all the way down. Let me get to the bottom of my page. All the way down to, and again, this is part of this lesson actually, this form element, it's all HTML code. So if we're going to nest, we want to wrap from this H2 to this form element with this div that has the class container fluid. So the way we're going to wrap, aka nest this, is by starting our open div tag up here. We need to create a div element. There's that. And we need to give it a class by just writing the word class and setting it equal to, in quotation marks, container-fluid. Okay, and then of course we want to close this element so that command stops. We opened it up here and we want to nest it or wrap it around all the HTML elements, which actually ends with this form close tag at present. So pardon me, we want to close our div down here, do the standard close or way of closing an HTML element. And there we have it. We've nested it, or we've nested our HTML within our div class container by starting it at the top of all the HTML elements that exist and finishing it at the very bottom. So all of these are nested within that div class now. And should, when we run our test, pass easily. Took a second, but it did. Okay, we'll move on to our next challenge. Just going to do the first three. So there's one that we knocked down. So our second one is we want to make images mobile responsive. And it's going to just take a few seconds to load, but we'll again get right to work. So we want to make images mobile responsive. First, add a new image below the existing one. Set its src attribute to this URL. It would be great if the image could be exactly the width of our phone screen. Yeah, that would be nice. Fortunately, with Bootstrap, all we need to do is add the img-responsive class to your image. Do this, and the image should perfectly fit the width of the screen. And again, I had done this lesson earlier, and usually it doesn't save the code, but for whatever reason it does. I'm going to take it out and explain what I've done. So for one, I think if you look at the directions, it gives you a strong starting point. You should have a total of 2 images. Okay, obviously we did. I just erased it, so now we only have 1. Your new image should be below your old one and have the class img-responsive. First, to put our new image below our old one, we have to find our image. So we find another thing that has an src or a source that certainly looks like a link to an image. So we're going to now come below the image that's presently up there, and we're going to start our element. It's an img with a class equal to, in parentheses here, img-responsive. I misspelled it. Be careful of any spelling mistakes, because things will not work. So we've got that done. Let's read and see if there's anything else. So your new image should not have the class of smaller dash image. Yeah, we're not going to do that. But there is more. Your new image should have an src of the following URL. So why don't we do that next? We're going to create a space, src, set that equal to, add some quotes, and then we'll grab this URL. Make sure it doesn't have that end period there. Copy it and put it right between the quotes for your src. So we're going to paste it in. Okay. So I think we have almost everything satisfied, but let's verify. Make sure your new img element has a closing angle bracket. Okay, for whatever reason it passed it and it does not have it, but we want to make sure that it's there, make sure the code's all good. If you look on our screen, we've got our smaller image, and now we've got this bigger image, and yes, perfectly fit the width of the screen without any further commands. So hopefully this passes and we can move right along. It did. That's good. All right, 2 of the 3 challenges are done that I'm at least going to show today. On to the next one. We're going to center text with Bootstrap. Let's see how we do this. So now that we're using Bootstrap, we can center our heading element to make it look better. All we need to do is add the class text-center to our h2 element. Remember that you can add several classes to the same element by separating them with spaces like this. So they give an example of h2 with a class of red dash text, and then they just have a space text dash center, and then you could go on and on. Okay, and then they wrote, just some your text as an example. Let's get for one down further on the page so we can see the directions. Your H2 element should be centered by applying the class text dash center. Your H2 element should still have the class red text. Well, it would be nice to find the H2 element so we can actually apply all these things. Just to make this really clear, between this style tag and this style, between this style open element and this style close element is all CSS. We're not working on the CSS on this lesson. We want to strictly focus on the HTML. Below the style here is our HTML. So they want us to focus in on the H2 element, and specifically the one that has the H2 class equals red text. If we look at our example again, we can add another class. This has red dash text and then space text.set. If we follow the example here, we should be able to get this to work pretty seamlessly. So we're just going to interject this new text center right after the red text just by simply adding a space. It gets that it's a different class, and we can go ahead and do text hyphen center. And when we get out of there, if you look here, this cat photo app is what it's aiming, or what it's pointing to. If we get rid of that, you can see that this is over here on our left side to initially. So keep an eye on this. We're going to re-add, pardon me, text dash center. Okay, and as soon as we do that, you notice cat photo app goes to the center. This was pretty simple, but certainly good to know. And we again got the green light, so that's good news. That's all I'm going to do for the very moment, but hopefully that gives you enough of a jump start that you can start applying some of the same thoughts on the lessons to come. So let me jump back into the screencast. Stop sharing the screen for a second. This was just a small start, but if you continue to follow the examples and draw upon the lessons earlier in the HTML and CSS from Freecodecamp, things should start making sense. So don't hesitate to ask any questions that you have, but at least you got a little start there. Thank you.